why does society have universities? Why do we need universities? Do we really have to build cathedrals when we build a university? Or how much is the hardware and how much is the wetware, right? The wetware is what's up here, right? So we have universities to create and disseminate knowledge, right? That we want to create new knowledge, we want to build on ideas, we want to learn, and we want to communicate that knowledge and share that knowledge and then ultimately apply that knowledge, right? And so that's obviously the aspiration of ASB, as all other universities. And knowledge should maybe have two components to it that we might think about. One is joy, right? So you think about learning. Some of you may have seen a child the first time he or she learns to crawl, learns to walk, learns to speak, learns to tie his or her shoes. There's a joy in learning, and that's a great thing. But learning can also be practical, right? How do we apply our learning to do great things for the world? So we heard a lot this morning about applying learning on how to reduce food waste, how to reduce fashion waste, how to have a cleaner, healthier planet. And so what we see is people applying their knowledge to practical value and practical uses. So what's the lifeblood of a great university? I think the lifeblood, the absolute core, is intellectual leadership. Intellectual leadership, what is that? Well, where do these ideas come from? Where does this education come from? Where does the educational products come from? Where does the research come from? It comes from leading thinkers, people who can look at the world and see a better way, see a different path, see new knowledge, formulate that knowledge, and then teach that knowledge to other people. So I don't think anyone embodies intellectual learning, intellectual leadership at ASB better than our next speaker. So Loredana has been with us since day one at ASB, and she has been an intellectual leader since day one. She started her on day one, she was faculty director for action learning. By about day 15, she was also acting COO. About 3 months later, she was also our marketing director. At one point, she was our MBA director, and she's been the director of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. She merged the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center with the Action Learning to become the Alice Group. She's led in many, many different areas, and that's organizational leadership. But on top of the organizational leadership, there has been intellectual leadership. So from at least, I would say, 2016, she started talking about smart skills. She said, I don't like the term soft skills. What's soft about soft skills? Let's call them smart skills. And it was an inkling of an idea back in 2016. But what does an intellectual leader do? What does a scholar do? It takes ideas and then adds research, adds practice, adds trial and error. So let's collect some data. Let's try some things out. Let's teach these ideas to people. Let them try them out in their action learning project, in their classes. Let's refine. And from 2016 to today, she has built and refined her inkling of an idea about smart skills into, in some sense, a canon for ASB. That is a code of knowledge for ASB that has become quite central to the way we think about education at ASB. So I think I don't want to drag this on because you should get exposure to our intellectual leader, but please welcome our speaker, the intellectual leader of ASB.
Thank you for that, Charlie. I did not expect that. Validation. Validation is one of the top 10 smart skills, and for the longest time, Charlie questioned, why do we have to validate people? I think today you demonstrated why you do it. It really touched my core. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll put my smart mask here. So we have new people in the room, people who just joined us recently. We have some people who are here from 9 a.m. We have also a lot of Zoomers, and we have a lot of people on YouTube. So with your permission, I'm going to share a little bit about ASB before I start talking about the subject of today, which is the skills of the future. Is that okay, Lauren? Lauren is nodding very, very vehemently here. So why are you here, and why did we invite you here? And first of all, why is ASB here? So Charlie mentioned we started this school in 2015. It was very much a massively ambitious project launched by Dr. Zeri, who, as we speak, gives a talk about her work. And the idea was always to create a school like no other, a business school like no other, an intellectual leader like no other. And we are probably one of the youngest schools in the world. Actually, we're still the youngest school in the world. And for such a young program, for such a young university, for such a young business school, we have been recognized already 3 times as one of the most innovative in the world. But the question is, what makes us innovative? So we have a highly innovative product portfolio, anywhere from the full-time MBA program. And students in the full-time, can you raise your hand so we can see you? These are the products of the full-time MBA program. Yep, congratulations to you all. Is the award-winning MBA program. It's very action-centric, which I'll talk a little bit in a second. We have the working professionals. Can I see some of the working professionals in the room? Thank you for coming. I know you're full-time working, and I'm so grateful that you're here. These are students who not only they have full-time jobs, but they attend a program that is equally, if not harder, than the full-time students. We have launched recently, last year actually, the Master of Central Banking is the only one of this kind in the world. It's a program designed very much only for central bankers who can learn from each other how to better manage the economies of their own countries. We have research centers because, like Charlie said, leadership, intellectual leadership has to be fostered and taken care of. And we have sustainability, energy, innovation, and entrepreneurship, a center for small shareholders, the Maybank ASEAN Center. And we also have a lot of training programs that we do. So we're not just educating our young students or our full-time students or part-time students, we're actually educating people like you in the room. But not only that we're educating, we're actually learning from you as well. So speaking of learning, I think what is very central to ASB next to the idea of innovation is the idea of partnership. I think January 5th, 2015, which was our birth date, it started with a big meeting with a lot of industry leaders. And I have to say, not a lot of academic institutions do so, because we knew from day one that we don't want to be a highly isolated ivory tower school. So we started with partnerships from day one. And to those of you in the room who are our partners, thank you very much. Who are the extraordinary and unconventional students that we managed to attract here at the ASB? And I see the admissions team here represented by the extraordinary Emily Price. Who is Emily able to attract? So in less than 5 years, we had over 320 students. You might think that's not a lot, but we have built 322 principled and transformative leaders, of which we are very proud of. We actually have a few alumni in the room too. Hey, Ben. 40% of these are Malaysian. And I'm very, very proud to say that in the world, I think we have the highest women quota in all MBA programs, because we're all about diversity. Yes, we should clap for that. If you look around in this room, and if you look around at the ASB student book, probably every second student comes from a different country. We have 57 nationality in our student body alone, and probably about 20, 30 in the rest of the ASB population. So United Nations, watch out, because I think we might be even slightly more diverse. It's quite extraordinary. So Citi showed you this in the first part of the program, but for those of you who are seeing it for the first time, you might think, what is this complicated presentation? This is how complicated our MBA program is. And that's why we have received so many innovation awards, because we do things like no other. We are taking action, we are taking practice, we are taking real problems that you as business owners and business leaders and business managers have, and we try to give them to our students with the help of a lot of faculty, of a lot of coaches that we have here in the room. And we are trying to teach our students how to practice what we teach. Every single semester, they learn a new problem from a new industry, from a new perspective, from a new discipline. Because the honest truth is, there's a lot of MBA graduates out there who are overpaid and underqualified. The one thing that an MBA will teach you outside of ASB and MIT is how to do a really fancy PowerPoint that nobody understands. And you got a lot of money for that because people are questioning, I don't know what this is, but I don't want to sound stupid, so I'm not going to ask you that question. At ASB, we wanted to do the opposite. We wanted our students to learn about humility, which is a top 10 SMART skill, by showing them the reality of working in practice. And after my talk, you're going to see a video of our students spending a whole week working with small farmers in Johor and learning about palm oil plantations and the real struggle that take place on the ground. And I have to say, being on the ground is very different than being in a high-rise office where you just give orders and say, I want productivity increased by 30%. So action is the DNA of ASB. Everything we do is in action. I see a lot of my students recognizing themselves here. Indeed, that's you, right? You replace the gym by lifting palm fruits. So it's not just action learning projects that our students do. We actually have many flavors of action because we are trying to infuse our MBA, our part-time MBA, our Master of Central Banking, our research, and especially our executive education teaching with a lot of action. And I see one of our brave leaders in executive education here, Lily, my favorite person ever. So if you want to talk more about it, there's a lot of people in the room who can help you. 5 years. 5 years, we managed to be in 30 countries doing this project. 30 countries in 5 years. That's a lot of countries. That's a lot of passports that had to be renewed. We're a very, very good client for a lot of embassies. We work with 378 projects with over 180 partners across less than 20 semesters. And that's how our students, because of hosts like you in Malaysia, because like hosts like you all over Southeast Asia and beyond, anywhere from Myanmar to Nigeria, Timor-Leste, Chile, Philippines, Thailand, USA, that's how our students learn to be smart and sharp, because it turns out that theory alone, it doesn't help, or at least not anymore. Like Charlie said, I took with a lot of pride and responsibility the leadership of the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center this year, together with Sharmaji, who is listening from the lobby. Hi, Sharmaji. So our mission is to create an organization that becomes a catalyst. And I think like Dato Darawani and Haka said in my previous panel, entrepreneurship is not a skill that sits only with entrepreneurs. I think if you look at the most innovative companies today in the world, they are very innovative because they are very entrepreneurial. And our goal here at ASB is to build a center that allows both corporates to build a lot more innovation and entrepreneurship, as well as our students and our startups. How? We have various programs, anywhere from teaching 4 semesters, entrepreneurship in action, to our students, hosting events for startups, hosting events for corporations. And speaking of events, I think Siri talked a little bit about it, but for those of you who are new in the room or on YouTube or on Zoom, this is probably one of the most awaited events, our first ever entrepreneurship competition. You are going to win 101,000K in either of the categories, startups or students. We had over 200 submissions, 98 accepted applications. Stand by for more info in April about this amazing event. Now, that was the word of the sponsor. You're here because I also have to tell you why you're here. But now I want to bring you to the main attraction, hopefully the main attraction of today's event. So, like Charlie said in the beginning, I was very troubled by the word soft, because my job at ASB is to teach my students skills. And I'm not a quantitative research. I actually failed accounting 3 times in college. It's a miracle that I'm not in prison. It's only because I'm rich enough to pay an accountant now. But because I teach skills that come from the soft category, I was always very challenged by, why do we call this skill soft? Because to be honest, there was nothing really soft about what I noticed that I needed to do, my students needed to do. So that's how it started. It started with simply questioning, why do we call things the way we call them? And it started because I had to think, what do I want to teach my students? And what are the skills that my students will need in the future? And then together as an institution, we constantly have to ask ourselves, what do our students need? When Patricia graduates, when Carolina graduates, what skills are the ones that will last them? What sustainable skills they have post-graduation? And everywhere you look, the answer is going to be soft and hard. So how many of you have heard when you were young that the hard skills are the hard ones, and they're very hard, and they're the real ones, right? I heard that all my life, and there was an intimidating factor that came with hard. On the other hand, you call soft skills soft, but there's an implication of, I don't know, fluffiness, delicate, not that meaty, not that essential. So I had a massive problem with this. And for those of you who know me, you know that I'm a troublemaker, and I like to challenge conventions. There's an on mic here. Can you turn it off, Ben? You are stealing my thunder, and you know I'm very, very, very self-centric here. So how many of you knew that soft and hard is turning 50 next year? You didn't know that? It's okay. I know in Malaysia we're retiring very early, but I actually would like to suggest that soft and hard go into retirement. They served us really well. At the age of 50, they became famous enough, but I don't really think they serve the purpose of who we are anymore. So soft and hard was actually invented by a US Army doctor who noticed that in his battalions, there are different people who do different skills better, or different things better. So he said that everything that had to do with machinery, with guns, I guess with shooting people, he called us the real skills, therefore the hard skills. And everything else that was like mushy, like dealing with people, he called those soft skills. Now, it really stuck, because 50 years later, we still call these skills soft and hard. But like I said, for me, when I started to think, especially when I started to think about SMART as a replacement to soft, I was very bothered by calling this skill soft, because what is a soft skill? Is managing your team. Is managing your team soft? The job is easy, the people are not, right? Is how many of you have to deal with board members? Is managing your board soft? If it is, can I join your board, please? Because mine is not soft at all. You know, we glorify diversity. Yay, great, we have 57 nationalities represented at ASB. That's a headache. Let's be very honest, we glorify diversity, but the world would be a lot better if, my world at least, if you wouldn't be so complicated. On the other hand, everybody would look like me, and that I don't like that either. So why exactly do we still continue to call these skills soft? There's nothing soft about them. Once again, the word soft is defined as light, as fluff, as delicate, as feminine, which I have another problem with, because women are soft, men are hard. Come on. The same thing, however, we started to challenge the word hard. So I was talking to Charlie one day. I was like, you know what? I don't like the word soft, but I don't think hard is any better, because there's an implication of rigidity. When you think about hard, you think of a stone. And actually, one of my students who's quoted in the paper said, you know, hard makes you think of a stone, makes you think of something that is static, that is rigid. How many of you learned, let's say, a software language 2 years ago, and now it's obsolete? Well, what do you mean? It's a hard skill. You learn it, you're good. So one of my students said in the paper that a hard skill should be replaced by the word sharp, because it makes you think of a pencil that constantly needs to be sharpened, right? Today, during during the Law of the Jungle presentation, I actually texted Asel, one of the students who put together a video, and I said, can you teach me how you did that video? Because I thought that I knew how to make a video until I saw yours. And it's like, oh yeah, Prof, it's a new thing. You know, it's a new thing, how the kids say it's a new thing. Every day it's a new thing. So constantly have to stay sharp. And I love this quote by Professor Lera Boroditsky. Lera was a professor at MIT, and later on she moved to UC Berkeley. And she's a professor of neuroscience and linguistics. And I only speak 6 languages, so I don't know exactly how the words translate in all 185 languages. I know, I'm showing off a little bit. But what she says is, how you frame and talk about something influences you how you think about it. If I say, hey bro, I'm sending you a message, right? I'm trying to make it very personal, very direct. I'm trying to be friends with you. If I say, gentlemen, welcome, right? I'm trying to send you a message. If I say, hey, chicks, hey, boys, hey, girls, there's a lot of implication that comes with words. So you might say, we're just changing semantics. Why making such a big deal? You brought me here all the way from my office or home. Thank me that you're here and not at home, because I think you had enough of that. But the truth is, what we say matters. So this is a quote that my one of the contributors to this paper, Sangeeta Maru, who's online, found out about Newton. I'm sorry, it's not a perfect screen. So words change over time because they change meanings, right? We evolve as a society. During Newton's time, Isaac Newton, the word gravity existed, but it was not used for what he discovered. So actually, as he was thinking about his discovery, he was thinking, how do I call it? Do I call it vigor, vitality, strength, power? It turns out that nothing really works. So he chose the word gravity. He did not invent the word gravity, but he gave it meaning. So words have meanings. If I say there's this chick in my office, she's a CFO. The second I say a chick who's a CFO, I put her down, right? Or this, this dude. Oh, I say it's a man, but I say something, I imply something about that person. So words matter. At least I do believe that words matter. And that's why we at ASB decided to challenge convention yet again and call these skills, which are, I think they're essential, replace the soft and hard with smart and sharp. Because like I said, they're 50. By now they can retire. They made enough money. So from now on, if you are on the ASB campus, you cannot use the word soft and hard for anything related to skills. Okay? Is that a deal? Thank you. So what are smart skills? So smart skills are anything that are related with dealing with people. Once again, you know me, I say all the time, the job is easy. The people are not. I don't know if you know, but I'm people too. Apparently, I make my life students very hard. That's my job. But smart skills are co-developed in collaboration with other humans because they require a lot of interaction. So let's say you want to develop, great social skills. Are you going to sit in front of a laptop and Google how to develop social skills and then talk to the machine? A lot of you do it. Don't. It doesn't work. It's very obvious when you come out and meet the people. I don't know if you noticed, 2 years into COVID, we don't know how to socialize with others, and we're a little bit geeky. Because smart skills cannot be developed in theory alone. Sharp skills, on the other hand, they require tools and technology. So as much as I want to learn, the latest software in design, which is one of my students is trying to teach me now, I'm going to have to do it through the value of technology. But then I'm going to have to constantly update it because remember, my students will say, hey, Prof, there's a new thing. This is so 2021. Oh my God. I hate millennials so very much. I'm almost one, but I managed to get away. So if you look around the room, if you look at what our students are wearing, if you look at our masks, you see that everybody's wearing this smart and sharp t-shirt. And you might think that, we just came up with this. Yesterday, everybody got the t-shirts, everybody got to wear them. We have this fabulous fans because, we're fans of fabulosity. Look at that. But it took a long time for us to get here. And Charlie said we started thinking about this in 2016. But you can't just go around and tell people, hey, Gina, from now on, you cannot use the word soft. Every time I see you, the smart police will come and fine you. So we actually built this through a framework that now that I reflect back, I know it's a framework. When I did it, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just, being my pushy self and telling people, don't do that anymore. So we started with changing the language. Then we moved on into changing the culture, teaching what we preach, and practice what we teach. So step one, change the language. We started to tell our community, staff, students, partners, that we don't believe that the word soft represents what we do here at ASB. And we want you not to use it anymore in our presence. We find that offensive. Because once again, if I need to know how to manage 57 nationalities, 3 different boards, because yes, ASB has 3 different boards. I don't know why, but we have them. It cannot be anything soft about it. And we said the same thing about sharp. So Leticia, who's here online with us on Zoom, hi Leti, says, I like how we define smart and sharp. It's a more humane way of describing the skills. Soft may be uncomfortable, but smart makes me empowered. Isn't that interesting how a word in itself can make you feel differently? Then we followed it by changing the culture. So once again, just imposing on people how you can speak doesn't work. I know, I survived communism. They tried, didn't work. We had to change the culture. So we had to make our people believe that this is what we do. Yes, Ed, that is you. Ed just saw himself on the screen. He's like, oh, I feel so validated. And you too, Gina. So our students obviously reflected a lot on these things. I had students in the room, not going to say who, Marwan. Where's Marwan? They say, I don't know, this is fluff. Yeah, it could be fluff, but it's our fluff. And we're going to walk the walk. I think once you start to practice it, you realize it's actually a little bit more than that. But we had to change the culture. We had a lot of workshops and training and preachers and evangelists. This is my God. I don't believe in regular gods. This is my God. This is what I believe in. But we also had to get other people to believe in this as well. And how do you do that? You don't change the culture by once again putting posters or these beautiful, things on the stage. We had to teach what we preach. So Charlie talked about action learning, and I talk a little bit about action learning. Our students spend a third of their MBA program in action, but we also have to teach them stuff. So I see our friends from ground control here. Hey guys, next week my house, right? Okay, he's gonna fix my garden. It's called an action learning project. So when we send our students to work with you, when they come back, we also have to teach them stuff. So in action learning, I was thinking, what is it that we need to teach our students to be successful on site? Yes, they need to know how to do a marketing strategy. They need to figure out a financial strategy. They need to understand how to use data analytics. But they also need to know how to work with a host. By the way, you're not easy, not the two of you. In general, every host, MC, GTC, hey, yeah, I'm talking to you. You're wonderful, but easy, you're not. So what do we do then? We can't tell students, tell him that he's not. We need to teach our students skills, then make them work with other people. Because guess what? If you're not easy, they're not easy, and they were not easy to start with because we recruited them to be unconventional, therefore not easy. And then the last thing that we did, we have to practice what we teach. So once again, you can't just say, students, today we're going to learn about adaptability. Chapter 4, read it, and then come back and I'll test you. What am I going to test you on? The definition of adaptability, right? So they have to go and learn how to be adaptable, and they have to come back and reflect with us. And I cannot tell you, where's Michelle in the room? Michelle is the head of our coaching sessions here. How many sessions? Yeah, Michelle turned into a psychologist because every single week we have people coming in and complaining about other people. You know what? It's interesting. Nobody never complains about themselves. It's always everybody else but themselves. Well, it turns out that we actually have managed to change that because we put together coaching services where we also ask the students to tell us about themselves. So like I said, that's our process. And I'm going to share with you a little bit the top 10 smart and sharp. But I want to ask you about, I want to tell you about the methodology. So this ranking, call it whatever you want, was not the result of me going around and asking the industry, what skills are you looking for? It was actually done by intensive observation and listening. Remember Haka talked and I think Oreo talked about listening as a skill. So the way I did it, because I've been teaching action learning at ASB for 6 years almost now, I've noticed what makes our students fail and succeed. And every semester I'll think, I see that happening a lot of the times, or I think that we need to teach more of this, or that's really not working. So I became an obsessive observer of our students in action. But also I observed you, the action learning hosts, the corporate partners, the companies that we work with. Yep, you have been the subject of scrutiny. We call that research. Sounds much better. We also had a lot of discussions. So I teach a lot of executive education, and I get to experience many of you in the class. And I ask questions like, what are you hiring for? Sean Ferguson, who's our Senior Associate Dean for both admissions and career, has to have a lot of these conversations with the people in this room because we need to understand, what are you looking for? Do you know what's the #1 skill that you guys are looking for? Humility. Humility is the #1 skill that companies are looking for, especially when they hire an MBA. Why? Because MBAs have the reputation of being the opposite of humble. Arrogant, overpaid jerks. Yeah? Absolutely. Unless you graduate from ASB, and I would say MIT Sloan. Other than that, no, we're not going to talk to you. No, I'm kidding. I'm sure you're good. The rest of them are not, remember? And then specifically for sharp skills, what I did a little bit of an assessment of trying to see what other schools are teaching in terms of sharp skills, and spent a lot of time talking to Charlie, who, I don't know if you know, he has a bachelor in mathematics, a PhD in system dynamics, and some very, very, very confusing sharp skills, and somehow he became a leader, and he's very good with people. So Charlie invented the word smart, because he's both sharp and smart. So this is our smart CEO. So you want to hear about the skills? I know you have the papers there with you, but also CT has a couple of mics, and the team has mics. Just raise your hand, ask me any questions you want. You're not going to get graded today, but I'll remember. So I'm curious to see your reactions. And once again, I like 10 because 10 is the perfect grade in education and gymnastics. I'm Romanian. The first 10 in the history of gymnastics was a Romanian. I love 10. Yes, you can cheer for that. So that's why we have top 10. But we could have had top 12 or top 14 or 12, 17, but I like 10. There's a lot of other skills out there. And also, there's a disclaimer in the paper that says, just for this exercise, some of the skills might be called competencies or abilities. I don't really want to go that deep into the linguistics of the definition of the word skill. So some of them might be interchangeable. And you also might be wondering, as a professor of entrepreneurship, how come entrepreneurship is not on your list? I don't think entrepreneurship is a skill. I think it's a meta skill that requires pretty much all the other skills to come and play. So should I go through some? So let me start with the SMART. I'm not going to go through all 10 because we don't really have that much time. What time do we finish today? 45? So let me pick a few. How many of you are familiar with cognitive readiness? Not my students, because you better be, because otherwise I don't know what I've been doing. So it turns out that in the last 2 years, even prior to COVID, about a couple of months before COVID hit really bad, so we're talking November, December, January 2020, so 2020, cognitive readiness was the most important skill that helped some companies across the world better adjust to the new reality. So cognitive readiness is the mental capability to be always ready for no matter what. Or translation, how to be God. Because only God is ready for no matter what, no matter when. Except when it comes to women. I think God is still trying to figure that out. Putting that aside, cognitive readiness is probably one of the most important skills to develop today because you have to sort of predict the future. Not only you have to predict the future, but then you have to prepare for it. And later on, I'll talk about how smart and sharp actually have to work together. So they are multiplied. It's a multiplier effect. That's why we have this X in the middle. It's not because it's replacing the word and, but because it's a symbol of a multiplier effect. I'm not even going to touch adaptability because I think it's sort of so obvious today. But I would say you need to be adaptable because you need to be cognitive ready because the world is always changing. So let me not talk about this one that much. But I do want to talk a little bit about multiple perspectives. So one of the most influential scholars in my academic life is Professor Roberto Fernandez from MIT. And the organizational behavior group at MIT developed a concept that we call the 3 lenses of organizational and people behavior. So these 3 lenses are strategic, cultural, and political. This is an exam too. They just don't know it. You passed. It's very, very important that you learn how to first develop multiple perspectives and then recognize multiple perspectives. I have to say, the last 5 years, the combination of Trump and COVID and China and all that is happening around the world makes you realize how different we are around the world. Another smart skill that I love, and I didn't know about this one, so I'll spend a little bit more time on validation. So I was watching Oprah. Do you know Oprah? Oprah Winfrey. She's one of the most famous TV interviewers of all time. And she said that she has interviewed over 10,000 personalities across her life, anywhere from Michael Jackson to presidents to Dalai Lama. And she said that one time she had Beyonce in her studio. And Beyonce was performing to a very small room like this because she was in the studio. And when Beyonce finished performing, and she's Beyonce, she went to Oprah and said, "How did I do? Did I do well?" And Oprah had a moment. It was like, "What do you mean? Of course you did. You're Beyonce." But that moment made her realize that every single person that came on her stage, including Tom Cruise, who we know he's probably less humble. Actually, I'm sure he is, but I don't know him personally yet. Wait until we become famous with this paper, Charlie, because straight to Hollywood. Oprah realized that if there's one thing that every single person she interviewed have in common is the need to be validated. And the need to be validated is not the need to say, "Hey, great shirt." It is a great shirt. You look very fancy. That's a compliment. Or, "Great job, Patricia." That's cheering. Validation is what you provided to me 2 days ago in that panel when you made me cry. So this guy here, this wonderful human being, took 3 minutes out of 20 minutes of a presentation to share with the rest of the team the things that he thinks I taught him. I think you're delusional. I didn't teach you anything, but thank you for that. So what did you say? So validation is evidence-based proof and affirmation of a contribution. Evidence-based. Thanks to our discussions, I have learned that the food waste in Malaysia can fill up 2 Petronas towers. We can buy 10,000 bags of rice. Until I realized all this information, I was not that much aware about how I changed my behavior. Hearing you talk about this thing made me really, really become more empathetic and more aware of what we do. That is validation. Now, you might want to say, this is a millennial thing. Millennials want to be validated all the time. Well, guess what? Baby boomers want the same thing too. The silent generation want the same thing too. We're not that vocal about it. But everybody wants to know that their work matters. I teach a lot of digital transformation, and I love it because none of you are ready for digital transformation. So please call me now before it's too late. By the way, it's too late, but still call me. It turns out that the #1 smart skill that you need in digital transformation is validation. Because digital transformation comes in and said, "Nothing that you did is good anymore. Bye." And then we start to resist. I'm like, "What do you mean? I've been doing this and I've been doing that." And we resist a lot because we are threatened that this new change is going to affect our value. So validation goes to your personal value. It's not, once again, beautiful dress that you have there. I can't see your name because I'm blind. Azalina. No, oh, I see you now. Hey, I haven't seen you in 5 years. You look so much better. How is that possible? Thank you. Of course I do. Even with contacts, I can. Beautiful dress, Azalina. That is not validation, right? Validation is, Azalina, I'm so grateful that you came to ASB. I remember the last time we met. We were at Bursa. We discussed this very complicated conference. Thank you very much. And this, right? That's recognition too. So validation, every human has this need. We might not be explicit about it. We might not say it. My boss here, he keeps saying that, "Oh, I don't need validation." Fine. But if you don't need validation, you also have to realize that others might do. As a leader, your most important job is to start first with validation, hide some feedback in the middle, bring some validation at the end. It's like a really good cake. I wouldn't know because I'm very slim. I don't eat sugar. That's so not true. I suffer of COVID-15. Do you know what COVID-15 is? Gaining 15 pounds during COVID. Oreo, where's Oreo? He ran? What? He thought that was it? No, he's outside. Listening. So I asked Charlie, what's the most important smart skill for you? He said listening. Listening is not hearing. Oh, I hear you. No. I can see that you're doing something else. You're not listening. Because listening is truly being 100% connected to those, to the problems or the thoughts or the sharing that that person or company or customers have for you. So this comes as a surprise to a lot of people, especially senior managers when I teach, because they say, oh, managing up is just kissing up, La. Well, maybe La was kissing up, but it's not anymore. The way I define managing up is knowing how to manage your stakeholders. And in order to be a very good managing upper, you need to be cognitive ready. Because I need to know in advance what you might need, and then I need to know how to prepare for what you might need. So managing up, once again, is not just me managing up my boss by saying, great job, Charlie, that was a nice speech. That is literally kissing up. Managing up is thinking ahead about what do we need to do next year, how can I help, how my organization, my team, my department can help the organization. How many of you have really shitty days because somebody lost their temper, somebody was rude to you, somebody had a really bad day and that day translated to yours? No? You work with robots, not with humans? Yeah, you do? I know I'm responsible for at least 3 of those 4 bad days with you, Lauren. Unfortunately, we work with people. I know a lot of you are like, what do you mean, unfortunately? So many people are so afraid that robots are coming and taking our jobs. Why you be afraid? We're going to do nothing but just sit and Netflix. It's great. Also, I don't have to fight with the robot because I'll tell the robot what I think, and the robot is programmed to respond nicely. That's why I love to talk to robots on customer-centric, calls. Have you ever had that experience? I don't have a life, so I sometimes call Maybank. It's an automatic machine. We have a conversation. That robot doesn't need emotional maturity because he was programmed, because he's a man, was programmed not to respond to any provocations, right? But it turns out unless we do that, unless we start working with robots, we need to keep our emotions in check. I'm somebody very famously at ASB who's emotionally immature. But I'm fabulous, so it doesn't matter. No, it's not. It matters. But, I'm delusional. Emotional maturity is not emotional intelligence. You can actually be emotionally intelligent. My dog is emotionally intelligent, can tell if I'm ready to give him a snack or not, if I'm happy, if we're going to go for a walk. Emotional intelligence is recognizing emotions. Emotional maturity is managing emotions, yours and those around you. How many of you, honestly, during COVID and staying at home with wives and husbands and pets and in-laws, oh my God, you felt like you lost it? You're like, if you come any closer, I swear to you. Right? That is a sign of struggling with keeping your emotions in check. And then you bring it to work. And if you're a boss, the advantage is that you can put it on somebody else. Poor Rafa is like, I don't know, what did I do? Doesn't matter. You're there. I'm going to put it on you. So emotional maturity is a skill that helps you manage your own and other people's emotions. Can you stand up, Yuren? I know I'm putting her on the spot. This is Professor Yuren. This is what I learned from Professor Yuren. Professor Yuren just joined ASB about a couple of months ago. I sat in her job talk. It was one of the most memorable job talks I ever sat in. I have to say, in most job talks, I'm very bored, but in yours, I actually listened. And one of the things that I learned in listening to Professor Yuren's talk is that there's such a thing that we call productive inclusion. Now, productive inclusion, it's not a lip service that we pay to say, oh, yeah, we cover diversity. We're looking at underprivileged populations, etc. Do you know that during COVID, there was a lot of employees who were asking for a 10 ringgit increase to top up their Maxis prepaid cards? There was a lot of companies saying like 10 ringgits, la, what is that? That's nothing. Well, it could be nothing for you, but if that 10 ringgit adds to 30 more ringgits of electricity consumption because now you're at home. I remember one of my colleagues saying that he was very upset when the government announced almost overnight that now you go back to school. And he said, I don't have enough money to buy shoes for my daughters because I didn't prepare for this in advance. This guy has a full-time job, but he also has a very hard life. So productive inclusion, which is what Iran taught me, is the ability, the skill to understand that the world around you does not look like you from an economic perspective, from a time perspective, from access to wealth and knowledge, and from access to hope. I was homeless for a couple of days in my life. And what Iran taught me is that when you're in a situation of desperation, the timeline horizon is very short. You can't think like, oh, once I'm done with this, I'm going to become a professor and a dean. A lot of us who are in these situations of extreme conditions, and by the way, they work for you, these people. These are not the beggars that you see on the streets. These are people in Malaysia who live very close to the poverty line. We as managers have to treat them differently. Did I do well, Prof? If you want to know more, talk to her. All right. Humility. The number one skill you're hiring for. Probably you don't even know it. Why do you want a humble person? Why do you want to work with a humble person? My hypothesis is that because humility, the way we define it, is the more you learn, the less you know. The more you learn, the less you know. And coming in an organization, especially for you, my little puppies, and when you come in and like, this is what you do, let me tell you, let me teach you. Don't do that, because you're going to have a very short career. So we think that humility is a very important skill because it allows you to be always on a continuous learning path. It allows you to realize how little you know, that the more you know, the more you learn. I am so fed up of hearing how all of us want to develop leadership skills. Great. How about some followership skills? Because there's maybe 1% leaders in the world and the rest of us are followers. Now, followership is not me following blindly what my boss tells me or what Nagara says or what MIT says. Followership is a skill that we define as following an agreed purpose, vision, mission, strategy. I don't know how many of you work with people who in meetings are like, okay, we're going to do it. And then they leave and they're like, let me show you how I'm not going to do it. And how I'm going to do everything in my power not to do it. Right? So followership, once again, is not you following the boss. We actually, at ASB, it's a sport to challenge Charlie. But once you agreed on something, once everybody put their cards on the table and they're like, all right, I'm in agreement with this, then you follow through. Digital transformation fails a lot because there's a lot of passive-aggressive resistance. Sometimes it's not even that passive. So, oh boy, do I talk a lot. Actually, they pay me to speak, so, it makes sense. I'll talk a little bit about sharp skills, but I want to make sure that we have time for the corporate panel. So let me choose two. Let me choose digital literacy, and I'll choose system dynamics. I think Wang Xin or Haka, you talk about system dynamics. The rest are obviously very important. But system dynamics is a discipline that was actually invented at MIT Sloan. And it's a discipline that allows you to understand how to solve a problem by looking at the system-centric perspective. So knowing how systems work. So 2 months before the pandemic was officially open, like the Olympic Games, they officially opened the pandemic March 15th. Remember that? Everybody go home. So we're January 15th. We have about 10 teams outside of Malaysia, 3 teams in China, 1 in Hong Kong. And Charlie comes in the office and says, call everybody back home. And we're like, what's wrong with you? Call everybody back home, this is going to be bad. And we're like, baby boomers, the age, it's time, maybe. And Charlie said, I put a system dynamic perspective to what's going to happen. They're going to close the borders. The second they close the borders, supply chain is going to get affected. The second transportation gets affected, we're going to see commerce getting affected. The second this gets affected, everything else is going to get affected. So this is like I said, it's a skill. It's actually a discipline at MIT developed by Professor Jay Forrester that now one of our very esteemed professors, John Sturman from MIT, is using to understand how climate change works. Because once again, you have to understand how system works. That's why, for example, a lot of banks are now faced with a lot of challenges that are not necessarily related to the bank industry per se. System dynamics and cognitive readiness are best friends. Because system dynamics teaches you how to be ready and how to do things. And cognitive readiness gives you that capacity to always stay ready. I'll skip this one. We can talk more in the lunch break, but I want to talk a little bit about, this is like choosing children. I don't have any, so it's not that painful, actually. I'm just faking it. Financial strategy, that's pretty important. Data visualization. Oh my God, if I see another PowerPoint that makes me think, am I smart or is this person just trying to show off? Consultant. Oh, I see Mackenzie in the room. Pay attention. I'm teasing you, but I'm not. Digital literacy, let me talk about that. So it's not even digital transformation. Transformation is a change. Everybody goes through change. I think we need to talk about digital literacy. I have a colleague who told me very excited that he bought one of those things that now has a calendar in it. I was like, 25 years later, but welcome. I think the pandemic obviously taught us that we cannot live without technology, but also taught us how much technology can harm us. So I think digital literacy is trying here to teach us and help us how to balance both data, technology with, trying to still remain humans if we want to do so. So you have a big, beautiful poster in your papers. Did you see that? You can actually post it in your office. I don't know if you remember, that is called paper. We used to use it a couple of years ago. You can still use it today. But what I want to say is, like I said, it's not the top 10. You can actually come up with your own top 10, 50, 500, whatever that is. What was important for us at ASB is to be aware of what skills our students need to succeed and build upon those. And obviously, we're not just teaching these kids 20 skills, because that would take a week. We're teaching you a lot more, but we're constantly trying to remind everybody what we need to do. They have a multiplier effect. Like I said, one of the things that I never liked about soft and hard is that they existed at the opposite of each other, right? They were almost in contradiction. I think of smart and sharp, but I'm afraid to say this because I have a Chinese scholar who scolded me for this, but it's almost like yin and yang. They have to coexist. Yes, he did. Yeah, thank you. Tai Chi? I'm not Asian, in case it's not obvious, but yes, I agree with you. They do feed off each other. You do need one without another, because you can't really be just one. Believe it or not, I say in the paper that leaders today have to be, almost Renaissance people. You have to know everything. And it's very hard when our career development office has to place our students and we see your job descriptions and you want them to be 25, to have three degrees, to be expert in 25 skills, and also work for 3,000 ringgit, shame on you. How? Well, we're going to figure it out, except for the 3,000 ringgit. Add the zero and we can talk. We're fancy like that. All right. So I'll end here. And like I said, I think that today we are asking a lot. We're asking everybody to be both smart and sharp. And I know we're all afraid of augmented intelligence. But I think before we worry about that, maybe what we need to do is just augment our humanity. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll stop. Before that, I will remind you. Actually, I don't have to remind you. This is the first time I'm telling you about this. I've been saying this, the job is easy, the people are not, for about 6 years. And every time I would say it, people would say, we have to write a book about it. But I didn't know what to write about except complaining about people. So it turns out that's called social media. You don't have to put it in a book. But finally, I came up with an idea. So this is going to come up in hopefully in April. It's a collection of 10 different interviews with 10 different people on 10 different smart skills. The title of the book is The Job is Easy. 10 smart skills to become better people. Please stay smart and sharp. Would you rather be soft and hard or smart and sharp? Because I know the answer for myself. Absolutely. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I'll open the floor for questions and comments, both on Zoom and in person. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Smart and Sharp Asian School of Business. Great job, everybody. All right, let me take a couple of questions or comments. Validation. Say something, my boss is there. Siti, we have one question here, and then we're going to go. Ben, also here. We need the mics for the people online.
Hi, Professor. My name is Ninja. I'm from CBRE. So since nobody raised their hand, so I'm lucky number one here.
Thank you.
My question is, do you see this translating into a competency map that organizations can adapt into their R&D or learning development, so on and so forth?
Do I see this translated into a competency map? So these are our smart skills and sharp skills. These are the ASB smart skills and sharp skills. I'm not trying to impose that on your company. What I could suggest is that you come up with yours. You come up with your own smart and sharp skills. So at ASB, our HR director, Aileen, who's I think calling us from Sarawak, started to say, maybe we should start measuring our people based on these skills. Since we preach so much about humility, let's put humility in our competency map. If we're talking about digital literacy, let's put that in our competency map. So I think we might go into that direction. And definitely I say that I could see that. Once again, be inspired by this, but they don't have to be yours unless you find some that are, you know what, that really works for my company too. In our case, like I said, it started very much by looking at how our students and staff are set up for success. What do you need to become successful? Great question. Anybody else? Thank you. Yes, sir. You can start setting up the chairs behind me because I know they are waiting for that.
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation, Prof.
Thank you, sir.
You have come up with very interesting 10 skills. You mentioned about the 10 skills and the connecting to the smart and sharp, the concept that you have actually discussed. I have some, while the idea of putting up all those things, very interesting, I am also curious whether you have moved forward in terms of measuring each element in those scope, and you have any plan of coming up with a kind of scoring? I'm not sure if I were to look at each and every element in this scope, do we have any specific scoring or weights? How these individual weights are, this is end of the day with a quantitative element will carry a lot of weight.
Are you an engineer?
I am actually a lecturer from UTP.
But an engineer?
Yes, Prof. I have.
I can spot an engineer from 1,000 miles away.
But my background is finance.
Even worse.
I am also for any beggar in the street looking at this. Okay, what would be the main takeaways? For example, if I were to look at the whole thing and I can actually focus in terms of Pareto analysis, what are the main takeaways? Let's say 4 or 5 that can actually solve 80% of the problem.
Nothing solves 80% of the problem. You need 180% to solve the problem.
So
but
probably,
I hear you.
Yeah.
I know you're a lecturer and you're also paid to speak, because that's what we do. But let me try to answer the question quickly.
Sure. Thank you.
What we have actually done at ASB at the beginning of the semester, we administered the test to our students that measures them on many, many dimensions beyond the 10 smart skills. For example, emotional maturity is measured by this test. And then we show the results to the people. Even humility is measured by this test. My score came up as 1%. Nobody can tell that I'm not humble. I have 1% of humility, counts. But then what we do, we actually have coaching sessions. When we take these results, we also take feedback from working in teams with other people. And we say, all right, this is how we're going to further develop it. A lot of people believe that soft skills cannot be measured. Great. Smart skills can. First, what you need to do is define it. But define it really well. Once you define it, you measure it. There's so many tests out there. The world of psychology does nothing but diagnose people. And then, as a lecturer, you put mechanisms in action. You teach people. So I teach people about emotional maturity, I teach people about adaptability, and then we send them in action, and then we come back and reflect. So you can definitely measure them. Sharp skills are easy to measure because you can actually administer tests. Thank you for that. This was the last question. I think Sean here, who's going to run the next panel, is anxiously awaiting to share his thoughts.
Before that, we have practical video to show.
Yes. So before we do that, actually, why don't you pass the mic to Charlie, because maybe Charlie wants to introduce the video. We can transition to that. This was another flavor of